parents in history. Harold the Great. Let's see how bad he was.
Bible, Herod the Great massacred children while trying to hunt down baby Jesus.
Massacred
but
children?
According to historians, that probably never happened because he was too busy massacring his own kids. See, Herod's throne was precious. The Roman Senate had named him king of the Jews.
I mean, wasn't sure exactly how bad we were talking when it comes to worst parents in history, but definitely massacring your kids would make you up there at the top part of the list.
But once appointed, he still had to make several marriage alliances in order for that title to mean something, which made Herod's family life complicated. Like, for instance, his son from his first marriage, Herod Antipater, was his heir, but he favored his sons from his second wife, who had been educated in Rome and reminded him of their dear departed mother, who he'd executed.
Right. So much is this gonna come down to just like the way lineages work in different nations and kingdoms. I've played Crusader Kings games before, and sometimes your firstborn is just kind of meh.
For treason. Now, worried his father might demote him, Antipater rid himself of the pair by convincing his father they wanted vengeance for their mom. So Herod, ever paranoid, ordered them put on trial, then strangled them in the same place he'd married their mom.
Wow.
What a sentimental sociopath. This was great for Antipater, right? Actually, no. For 2 years later, Herod executed him for treason as well, supposedly leading Augustus to remark that it was better to be Herod's pig than his son. Well, in that case, why not be a
Wow, that's an insane phrase. It's better to be his pig than his son? What's funny is obviously this story is pretty bad, but this stuff happens so often. Like, it's just kind of a theme. Like, there's obviously been some historically terrible parents. I miss your mother. You killed her. Of course. Wow, this MFer was twisted. That video is by Extra History. Please go subscribe. How about one of the worst moms in history? Now, this one, historically, wasn't that long ago. It wasn't as deep as the other dude.
Wizard of Oz star Judy Garland had the stage mom from hell. Because Ethel Gum, Judy's mother, was determined to make Judy, original name Frances Gum, a star.
Yep. I mean, anyone that knows a lot of lore behind Wizard of Oz has definitely heard all these stories before. And it's funny because this is, you know, like one of the very first examples from like cinema history this occurred in. But damn, it's still going on today. Like, there are still parents just like this.
Viewed on stage at age 2, and by the time
maybe
she was
not
6,
just like this because this is particularly
with
bad.
her 2 sisters. Mama wanted them working early. Then in 1935, Ethel got Judy a contract at MGM, which let the studio control everything about her life, from her schooling to what she ate. But by age 15, she was making movies. Meanwhile, both her mother and studio executives were constantly scorning Judy's looks. The head of MGM called her, quote, my little hunchback, and she was often dubbed an ugly duckling. With her mother's support, the studio put her on an extreme diet, and then when Judy told them that she was exhausted, they had the perfect solution. Amphetamines! Oh, and for sleep, barbiturates.
Now, to be fair, a whole lot of people were doing that back in the day. Like, it was kind of commonplace. Just look at Germany and what the little mustache man was doing.
And for sleep, barbiturates. Yeah, they got her hooked on drugs. Judy finally cut Ethel out after she was forced to have an abortion, ruining her first marriage, but the pattern was already set, and she tragically passed away at the age of 47.
Yes, and then her daughter also had a rough life. I swear, The Wizard of Oz has probably the most insane stories surrounding it. I guess it's gonna happen with literally any classic piece of media like this. It's a terrible thing when a parent tries to live vicariously through their child, using them to realize their own lost dreams and ambitions. Man, that's a tale as old as time, too. And we're gonna learn that from more videos. Another worst mom in history. This one a little further back.
The Old West, and would take
Calamity
about any job
Jane.
that came her way. Scout, freight driver, cook, smallpox nurse, gambler, performer, and mom? Oh yeah. In fact, Martha Calamity Jane Cannery had 2 documented children. The first, named Little Calamity, tragically died in early
I don't know
childhood.
much, believe it or not, I don't know much about this woman. I've heard her name, obviously, numerous times.
But her daughter Jessie spent her youth getting dragged around the underbelly of the Old West. Jessie first appeared in records in 1887 when Jane, on trial for drunkenness, mind you, avoided jail time by revealing she was pregnant. Yikes. Jessie next pops up at age...
Ooh, awkward. I think about this all the time, though. Like, how many pregnant women throughout history were also alcoholics? Like, it's a little scary to think about. We all maybe have problems because of that.
6 in Montana, sighted in a restaurant Jane was running. But then Jane disappeared, ditching Jessie there with no news. Oh, but not to worry, Jane eventually surfaced in a mining camp's drunk tank 200 miles away. When she returned, she then packed Jessie's bag and skipped town because she realized that her daughter needed stability. So Jane threw her a benefit party in Deadwood to raise boarding school tuition money, but then drank the entire collection plate that same night. And school was a tough place for Jessie. She actually had to withdraw after her mother's infamy caused the other girls to tease and throw rocks at her. Subscribe for further historical calamities.
Dang, that's just depressing. Wow, why was that so sad? Just like a deadbeat mom? Why? I don't know, that one just ended particularly badly. I'm like, dang, that sucks. And she's honestly one of the more tame ones on the list so far. I guess it could be worse. At least she wasn't Judy Garland's mom. Now here's a lady I know quite a bit about.
Empress
This
Catherine
one
of Russia was pretty great. But
Empress
her mom, Not so
Catherine the Great of Russia, man, does she got some stories.
much. Johanna Elizabeth of Holstein-Gottorp
Let's see
was a
where
deeply unhappy woman.
She has a lot of myths around her, obviously, but this is going to be an interesting telling. Obviously, her mother, well, probably had a lot to do with her. I mean, that's how parents kind of are.
Not so much.
Especially
Johanna Elizabeth of Holstein-Gottorp was a deeply unhappy woman.
Oh,
Having
boy.
grown up in a glittering court, she was married at 15 to a comparatively poor prince 21 years her senior. So her greatest hope was to regain status.
Yeah, see, that's always gonna make people a little angry, especially when you're marrying like a 36-year-old and you're 15. Like, if you have to do that, if he's like the king of England, all right? But if he's just some mediocre dude, it's like, damn.
Marrying her kids
Wasted
up. But she was
opportunity
bitterly
there.
disappointed when her first child, Sophia, the future Catherine the Great, was
Nice.
a girl. Johanna neglected Sophia, doting on her sickly younger brother instead until he died. Her efforts then refocused on marrying off Sophia, which included a campaign of verbal abuse and criticism to help her. But finally, she engaged
Ooh, that's crazy, because you hear that still. You hear about that still now.
Sophia to Peter III, heir to the throne of Russia. So you'd think Johanna would finally be happy, right? Wrong! In fact, she became furious that Sophia was now the center of attention. For instance, at the engagement dinner, she threw such a fit about her seat placement that Empress Elizabeth cordially sat her at a new table in an empty room by herself.
Nice.
Oh, and she was also spying on behalf of Prussia, so, there was that. And when she left Russia, she never saw her daughter again.
Dang.
For all the historical hot goss, check out the full episode below.
I mean, well, we don't know the extent of the abuse that her mom was doing at a younger age, but and we started off this video with a dude that was literally murdering his own kids and other kids. I don't think we're ever gonna top that one. Huge props to whoever's idea it was to seat her alone in a separate room. Only way to handle that situation, really. Catherine the Great's mom reminds me of some entitled pageant moms. Love when you type in Catherine the Great facts, the first aspect of it is that wasn't actually her name, and she wasn't even actually Russian. And yeah, the whole horse thing was not in fact real.
Worst
Oh
dads in
boy,
history!
Frederick the Great.
So
Now-
you're the king, and your 6-year-old heir is already studying philosophy, speaking French, and playing
That's
the flute.
pretty good.
You'd be proud, right? Well, not if you're Frederick William, the ultra-masculine soldier king of Prussia. Because
I mean,
you
it does make sense. Prussia was known for their military might. They probably had some pretty ruthless fathers in there. Look at the Spartans. Your baby coughs once, you gotta yeet him off a cliff.
think all of those
Surprised we
things
don't-
are
we'll
weak
probably
and
see one of
feminine.
those examples
Instead of
later.
recognizing young Prince Frederick's clear talents, his father tried to fix him. With a campaign of regimented drills, public verbal abuse, and beating him in front of soldiers, Frederick was supposed
See,
to
the
commit.
messed up thing about this, I mean, you don't want bad parents, but those bad parents sometimes do, how do I phrase this? Instills a little bit of trauma and makes people great later in life. It's just a theme. I don't know.
Man. Though not all his ire was directed Frederick's way, the king would also throw dishes at family members during meals, so yeah. Though all of that paled in comparison to what happened when Frederick tried to run away with a tutor who was also likely his lover. His father ordered 2 grenadiers to hold Frederick's head to the bars of his cell and watch as his likely boyfriend was decapitated. He also beat the young prince so badly, his mother thought he would die.
Dang, I'm imagining, what's that show? Invincible? This had to be where they got the idea from.
Beat the young prince so badly, his mother thought he would die.
Dang.
This, of course, did not change Frederick's interests. Rather, he'd emerged as a supremely talented ruler and military commander despite those years of abuse. Click
Literally,
subscribe for more.
It made him great. I mean, it's weird to say, but I'm sure that was the chip on his shoulder he needed, maybe. Frederick II despised his father so much that his dying wish was to not be buried in the family plot next to his father, but instead along his beloved hunting hounds. Yeah, Prussia definitely went beast mode at this time. They were scary. I don't know why this is reminding me of another Frederick from Prussia that helped teach American soldiers to help fight during the American Revolutionary War. It'd be pretty funny to be one of these soldiers and just have this random German man screaming that you're holding your musket wrong. So I'm just thinking that like pretty much every great person from history probably had like a messed up dad. Now I'm wondering about Alexander the Great and his father. Alexander the Great's father really set the foundation for his son to be so great. I don't know how his parenting skills were from before that though. According to sources, Alexander was actually very jealous of his father and his brilliant achievements. How about a
Moms
mom
in
from
history!
China? Oh boy.
China's
Now,
only female emperor, Wu Zetian, often
you
cast
might
herself
know this
as the
one if you
mother
played
of the Tang
Civilization
Empire.
before. This will give me some much needed backstory whenever I run into this lady again.
Cast herself as the mother of the
Tang.
Tang Empire. But how is she as an actual mom? Well, a little overbearing and murdery, it turns out.
Oh,
A ruthless
the overbearing part, I feel like that comes with the territory, but murderous, I mean, a slight step too far maybe?
intriguer, Wu entered the imperial harem as a teenager, and over the next
The
decade
Imperial
endeared
Harem.
herself
Oh my gosh, this reminded me of that meme earlier from this week. Wife 7's trying to poison you. Wife 12's trying to poison you. The Empire is falling apart.
to the crown prince. Then when the emperor died, she joined the son's harem, where she dispatched rivals through slander, blackmail, and execution,
Jeez.
which supposedly eventually culminated in her killing her own baby to frame the then Empress for its murder. Then once Empress herself, Wu proceeded to become the stepmother from hell. To clear a path for her own children, she implicated her stepsons in plots against the government, getting them banished to far-off border postings or forcing them to commit suicide. But her own kids rightfully feared her too. When her eldest son refused to be her puppet emperor, she banished him to the provinces. He had to leave the palace in a snowstorm, with his wife having just given birth to Wu's grandson. Not exactly maternal behavior, which is why he later overthrew Mommy Dearest after age weakened her.
Well, I mean, dang, can you blame him? I kept thinking, how has she not been murdered yet? I don't care if she's my mom, taking her out. Her last words, what did I do to deserve this? Imagine a kid between Henry Ford and Wu. Oh, we gotta go see that one. Now there's already a whole lot of stories out there about Henry Ford and it's not good. It's definitely not good. But here we go. Here's a cherry on top maybe for us.
Arguably the father of the modern age, but how was he as an actual father? You know, if the series' name didn't give it away. Well, he wanted his son Etzel to make cars with him, and from the time he was 2, watching his father drive his first quadricycle, that's what Etzel wanted too. But Ford also didn't want anyone controlling Ford Motor Company. Even after officially handing the reins to Etzel for legal and PR reasons, Ford still showed who was really in charge. He undermined Etzel, berating him in public, and once surprised Etzel by using his son's new engine prototype to inaugurate a new metal scrapper.
Jeez, I don't know why I'm thinking of like the wrestling guy Vince McMahon. He's also had a hard time letting go of his company in the past.
And being a teetotaler himself, he also hired Ford security to spy on his boy, breaking into his house and smashing the bottles in his liquor cabinet. In fact, he continued to harass Etzel, even after he sickened from stomach cancer, which Ford also blamed Etzel for getting, saying a clean diet would cure him. And he kept it up until Etzel died.
Damn.
Yeah. It was only after he buried his only child that Henry Ford asked, was I too hard on the boy? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more.
Yeah, again, like I said, Henry Ford already does not have a great reputation at all. He was pretty cool with the no-no Germans. He had a little anti-Semitic past. The worst part is that there is real proof now that stress and depression can cause all sorts of stomach problems, including cancer. Etzel, father, I'm dying, stop bullying me. No. The trolling went a little bit too far, I guess. And this is all coming from a Ford guy. I do like Ford vehicles, but we just don't talk about him. How about another Russian parent that wasn't that great?
In 1718, Alexei, the Crown Prince of Russia, fell on his knees and begged his father, Tsar Peter the Great, for forgiveness.
Peter the Great.
But in reality,
it's funny how some of these like great leaders sometimes became great because of their parents. Sometimes the great leaders were also not so great when they became parents.
He's probably the one that deserves the apology. See, Peter was a pretty absent father, ignoring Alexei to focus on his vision of modernizing and expanding Russia.
Yes, he really was obsessed with Europe. He really wanted to Europeize. What's the word? He just wanted Russia to become more like Europe. I think he was traveling to France a lot.
When he did show up in Alexei's life, it was to do things like criticize his bookish son, or
he did like some weird stuff too. Like he made a bunch of Russian people only dress a certain way or have a certain type of haircut or something. Oh, that's right. He forced men to cut their beards and wear more other European fashion. They were forced to shave beards and mustaches. That would suck for me. I'm not trying to look like a baby all the time without my beard. But he did do a good job in, modernizing, westernizing Russia. The problem is being a parent. I guess that's to be seen.
To do things like criticize his bookish son or force his mother into a monastery. But then things turned nasty when Peter sent Alexei a letter calling him unworthy of the throne and threatening to disinherit him. But instead of motivating Alexei to change, his terrified son agreed, volunteering to abdicate his position.
I've been hearing that Russia, Peter the Great of Russia, maybe wasn't so great. It's very, it's easy to look at these figures from history and see two different sides.
And enter a monastery, then promptly fled to Austria. Peter eventually coaxed him back to Russia with promises of safety, but when Alexei arrived, instead Peter gave him over to a torturer who whipped Alexei to death in order to extract a confession of plotting against his father. Of course, Peter wouldn't be the last ruthless leader to expand Russia's borders. And if you'd like to find out more about the current one, you should definitely check out Modern Conflicts.
This is a nice, little Putin face right there. Okay. Hey, he actually might be the worst so far. Lured his son back to torture him to death after he had already agreed to step aside. Yeah, that act right there. Ooh. So I guess this is why Peter the Great is often criticized. Rockefeller. Oh boy.
Where did
what
famous
store
rich man
are we talking
John
about? Now, I don't know why, for some reason, for me, well, there's a lot of things that come up when I think of the Rockefellers, but one of them, that Rockefeller that got eaten by those natives. Crazy story. Maybe those, I don't think they're going to talk about it here.
Rockefeller get his business sense? Well, partially from his pop, William Doc Rockefeller Sr., con man and criminal. Doc made his money largely on land speculation, which he funded by claiming to be a doctor selling fake cure-all elixirs. He'd then loan money to poor farmers at 12% interest, knowing that they'd default so he could take their farms. And he taught this ruthless business sense to his boys, even regularly cheating them in order to keep them sharp. Once, he even put young John up on a chair and asked him to jump into his arms and then just let him fall. Don't trust anyone, he said afterward. Not even me.
Holy crap. That's gonna make them not even trust himself. That's a pretty funny line, though.
After William was indicted for raping a maid at gunpoint, he
What?
abandoned the family, leaving them penniless, and remarried under a false name. Young John, 18.
He tried to warn him, don't trust him.
Teenager at this point, then employed his entrepreneurial streak to support the family, and he eventually became hugely successful. However, his empire of Standard Oil would go on to use underhanded tactics to expand, proving the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Subscribe for more.
Well, I mean, yeah, when he's raised with those morals, yeah, I guess it shouldn't be surprising. At least he warned his son that he would be an awful father and that he should not rely on him. John D. Rockefeller was the person that said, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. Yeah, that's nice. This is the Rockefeller that got a little bit too close to New Guinea. Like I said, all those videos are by Extra History. Please go subscribe. We now will all avoid being bad parents. Big thanks to patrons. Month 1 in Drew's basement. Kansas was mentioned. I can't sleep without Drew's voice. Drew's Argentinian Grandpa. I'm back, Amateur Archaeology. aPhatNarwhal. Carmel Saida. DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood. InquisitorXarius. KirinoIsBestGirl. Tambre, Tyrol. The Mexican KingBearHaze. Fredrik Tibblin. And ZaneyBoi.